Mis mitruhais, kan Chairman Valentin Lopez, kan listen ni pide waswasatak. I want to thank you for being here this morning. Before I speak, I'd like to recognize some people who are here. We have 5 members from the Santa Cruz City Council, and that's really powerful. There are mission bells on Santa Cruz City property today, and we hope to schedule a meeting with them soon and ask that the mission bells on the city be removed as well. Those 5 city council members are Sandy Brown, Drew Glover, Justin Cummins, Chris Crone, and Cynthia Matthews. Thank you very much for being here. I also want to recognize Rachel Dan, who works for Supervisor Ryan Coonerty from the Santa Cruz County. And we hope to talk to the Santa Cruz County about our greater effort to have the bells removed and other symbols of the destruction and domination of Native peoples. Finally, I want to recognize one professor, Diane Gifford Gonzales. Diane, she's back there. Is she going to raise her hand? Oh, there she is. The reason I want to give special recognition to her is that here on campus, we have the remains of our ancestors who have been here since the campus has been built. And getting the remains returned from a campus is nearly impossible. But many years ago, Diane and Judith and others on campus, John Denke included, and others, have worked hard to try and find a path to have our ancestors returned to us so that we can bury them with ceremony, so they can pass to the other side and be with their relatives and be in peace. And in August of this year, Diane and I are going, and Amy, hi Amy, I didn't see you there, are going to Alaska to present at the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Committee, and that's the final step before getting those remains returned. So we hope that whenever Diane and I come back from Alaska, that we will have the approval to have those remains returned to our tribe so that they can be buried with ceremony. And that's, for our tribe, that's the most important priority of our tribe, is getting our ancestors who have passed back and have them returned to the other side. So I'd like to give acknowledgement for Diane as well. And all who helped, of course, and all who helped. I want to especially thank Vice Chancellor Sarah Latham, who worked hard for us and with us. And the students and the faculty and the administrators for listening and understanding the importance of removing the El Camino Real mission bell. The bell says, El Camino Real, the road of the king. This bell pays tribute to the King of Spain and to the mission times that were here on these lands of California. The El Camino Real was actually built on indigenous trails and trade routes that were used by the indigenous people of California for thousands of years. The way the story of the El Camino Real is presented, as if though they came through, the Spanish soldiers came through with machetes and paved, and made a path through all the bush and everything else here. And that's what allowed them to enter here. Those were actually indigenous trade routes that were used for thousands of years. To the Amah Mutsun and most California Indians, the El Camino Real represents the destruction and domination of California Indian culture, spirituality, environments, and humanity. The El Camino Real represents the theft of our lands. The El Camino Real represents incarceration, slavery, brutality, torture, rape, fear, and terror. And the El Camino Real represents the death of nearly 100,000 California Indians along the coast. In all honesty, it is confusing for our tribe to understand how the state of California can recognize any part of mission history as something that is to be honored, glorified, and to be proud of. The state of California has tried to forget, ignore, and erase the history of California peoples. The state of California, the Catholic Church, and local communities continue today to benefit and profit from our destruction and our domination. Both the missions and state parks that are at the mission sites, they charge admission to enter their facilities to learn about how the priests treated the Indians as children, and to learn how the Indians came to the missions voluntarily, to learn agriculture, to find a better life, and to find God. Those stories that they tell at the missions, they don't tell that our people were here for 10, 12, 15,000 years or more. They don't tell that our people were here for 800, 900, perhaps 1,000 generations or more. They don't talk that our history, that our creation story tells us that it was our responsibility to take care of Mother Earth and all living things. And we knew how to take care of the plants, the four-legged, the wing, the fin, the air, the water, the fog. Those are things that our people learned in a sacred way to take care of, to steward, and to ensure their sustainability. We saw that the Creator made the world perfect, and it was our obligation to take care of it that way. And most importantly, the land is sacred. The land is sacred. It is not meant for us to destroy, for us to dominate, for us to conquer. That's not what it's for. We are to have a sacred relationship with the land. The same way we take care of our babies, our brothers, our parents, our elders, with love, with kindness, with gentleness. That's the way we are to take care of Mother Earth, not with domination and destruction. That wasn't in my notes. Now it is time to tell the truth so Indigenous people can heal from their historic trauma. And the way our tribe talks about historic trauma is, if you imagine the slavery, the brutality, the rape, the whippings, etc. at the missions, how do parents teach their children how to have love, to have optimism, to have hope, to know that tomorrow is going to be better, to know that they're good people? How do parents teach their children that when every day is nothing but fear and terror and hoping to survive one more day? And imagine doing that for 4, 5, 6, 7 generations. What does that do to the parents' ability to raise their children, to have hope, to know who they are, to have strong identity, to have self-esteem, to know their purpose for being here? That's what was ripped for us, starting with that mission times. That's what was ripped for us. And that's what we need to heal from, that historic trauma. And all healing begins with telling the truth and listening with your heart, not just with your ears, and allowing the people to tell their story. But one of the most important parts of healing is to recognize that perpetrators must heal as well. The Amah Mutsun believe that Indigenous people will not heal until all perpetrators are healed. Can you imagine that? How can we heal as Indigenous people when they can't even tell the truth of the history, and they try to erase you and ignore you and forget you? But until they recognize the truth, until they tell the truth, until they start working on their healing, can we as Indigenous people heal? Perpetrators such as the Catholic Church, Spain, Mexico, cities, counties, and state of California in the United States, they all must recognize that they need to heal from their soul wound that resulted from their brutal histories. The destruction of California Indians never ended. It never came to an end. It just evolved to the oppressive and immoral laws that exist today. The laws that refuse to allow the return of our ancestors' remains that are held at many of the universities and museums across the country. They allow the destruction of our cultural and sacred sites so that they can build their shopping centers and these big development projects, all for money, and ignoring the spirituality of the lands or the people that are buried there. in California, if 3 burial grounds are found, they make a determination: are they Native American or are they not Native American? If they're not Native American, the construction project cannot continue. It's recognized as a cemetery, and they cannot develop on a cemetery that is not native. But if those three remains are determined to be Native American, they can just rip those remains out and any other remains they come across and can continue their destruction, continue with their development. Not that many years ago, we had to bring up 188 remains of ancestors so that they could put a Safeway market there. And we had to do a reburial of 188 remains. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done as chair. But yet those are the laws that are on the books. We are not treated equal. We are not treated equal. As an federally unrecognized tribe, whenever we hold ceremony, it is illegal for federally unrecognized tribes to hold ceremony. Whenever they outlawed spiritual practices of Native tribes, when they outlawed the spirituality practices of Native American tribes, that applied to all Indians. Whenever Jimmy Carter passed the Restoration of Native American Freedom of Religious Act, or something very close to that, that applied to federally recognized tribes. Never has our right to have our spiritual practices and our ceremonies been restored. It is illegal. And we're in line to be arrested, I can tell you that. Our tribe has been holding bi-monthly wellness meetings for over 9 years. We have learned a lot during this time. We have learned about telling the truth, that how the truth is important, is critical to healing. And we have addressed issues such as suicide, rape, molestation, adoption, and so many other painful things that are all the result of that brutal history, that historic trauma we talk about. Those are the things that resulted. And we have sent letters to the popes, presidents, governors, governmental leaders, telling them that they must heal from their soul wound, and that we would like to work with them on that healing. And not once has anyone responded to say, let's meet, let's talk together. What do you mean? Let's understand this. What can we do? Not once has that happened. That's what makes today such a huge, huge deal. This is the first time we've ever had an institution recognize the importance of correcting the past and beginning the healing process. On Tuesday, Governor Newsom apologized to California Indians, and he called for a Truth and Healing Council to be established. Normally, the Amah Mutsun do not accept apologies. We have learned that when popes, bishops, or others apologize, it basically means, we apologize, now will you shut up? That's what we hear with apologies. Apologies must be followed with actions. Governor Newsom called for a Truth and Healing Council. This can make his apology different, and we hope so. But it must not only be California Indians who need to tell the truth and to heal. As you've heard already, perpetrators must tell the truth. Perpetrators must recognize that symbols of destruction and domination must be removed and replaced with markers that tell the truth and acknowledge and respect indigenous people that lived on these lands for thousands of years. When we talked about removing the mission bell here, we talked about replacing it with a plaque. And we hope to talk about that and have that soon. In 2015, Pope Francis was in Ecuador just a few months prior to the canonization of Junipero Serra. And there, Pope Francis apologized to the indigenous peoples of the Americas for the sins, the crimes, and the offenses of the Catholic Church. Guess what? Those sins, crimes, and offenses that he apologized for happened at every one of these missions. including Mission Santa Cruz and Mission San Juan Bautista, the mission at which our ancestors were taken to. And just months after his apology, he canonizes Junipero Serra. Junipero Serra is the one that established that system of incarceration, of slavery, of brutality, of whippings, of the doctrine of discovery, which basically says that the indigenous people do not own the land. We are basically equated to those deers and those slugs over there. We use the land, but we don't own the land. And so whenever they come here, there's no ownership of the land. So those European nations, Spain, Portugal, primarily at the beginning, had the right to come in and take them. And they also had the responsibility to try to convert the indigenous people to be citizens of Spain, and they had to convert to the Catholic religion. And if they didn't do that, they were to die. And that's very brutal. That's a brutal truth. It's estimated that under the doctrine of discovery and other papal bulls, that over 300 million people died. And 90 million in the Americas and 30 million in the United States died as a result of those papal bulls and the doctrine of discovery. That's a history that's never told. That's what the church must heal from. We recognize that we have to remove all symbols of those sins, crimes, and offenses that were committed by the perpetrators. We must not allow perpetrators to remain silent. That's why we're here today. This is the first step. Please stand with us as we go forward to get all symbols down and to get all symbols down and to have the truth told and to begin the healing for indigenous people. Oh. Oh. Next, I'd like to introduce Tony Gonzales. Tony Gonzales is the director of the American Indian Movement West, AIM West. He has worked tirelessly throughout his life to advocate for human rights and indigenous people's rights. Tony is an indigenous liaison at the United Nations who has opened the door for our tribe to speak on the floor of the United Nations. Tony is the one that I worked with to arrange my ability to go to the United Nations to speak against the canonization of Junipero Serra, to speak against recognizing the El Camino Real as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and on other topics. Today, Tony's joining us from San Francisco. Please welcome Tony.
Oh, greetings, my relatives. Today is a beautiful day indeed, and I welcome this occasion. Extend my hand in friendship. I come on behalf of the American Indian Movement and AIM West. And as you know, it's a movement. Today, AIM is a direction. And it continues as we've seen in these past days, in these past years, the reclamation of our cultura, our ceremonies, and the land. And as we knew that the manifest destiny, the push from the east to the west, it only refined the art of killing and the genocide of people. And certainly California received the brunt of that. And there's a woman named Winona LaDuke who had said words to the effect, the only way of recompensating for land taken is to return that same land back to the people. And this is where we're at today. And to move away from the pain and into the beauty of what indigenous peoples have always had and are still willing to offer. We are moving into that era. We are taking down symbols, statues, flags, schools that have Indians as mascots, images and murals that depict us in a very romantic way. Yes, we are moving ahead together. And so today I'd like to sing you just a quick song to ask the Spotted Eagle to come and to listen to our hearts and our words and carry to the creation. Ya takaya heya makakue chieyo wambli glashkawa heya ya uelo aya kayo. Ya takaya heya makakue chieyo wambli glashkawa heya ya uelo aya kayo. Ya takaya heya makakue chieyo wambli glashkawa heya ya uelo aya kayo. Ya takaya heya makakue chieyo wambli glashkawa heya ya uelo aya kayo. I sing that for the four directions and the four sacred colors of the pitiful two-legged. Thank you, all my relations.
All my relations.